Right, guys, long time no speak. So I've been playing a lot of PoE2 since it came out, and I cooked up this fire build, which I'm going to explain to you now, starting with the skills. So Flameblast is our main damage skill, and we have 4 nodes on it so far. First is movement speed penalty is reduced by 30%, so we can move with it quickly. Momentum, 40% more damage after you move 2 meters with the skill. So if you look at the stage, it's 0.4 meters and maximum of 10 stages, which means this is 4 meter radius. So if you move at least from here to here, it's gonna proc the momentum, and 40 damage is a lot. And you can kind of see a visual cue. I mean, when there's a lot of monsters, you can't really see it well, but you see that green thing, like a green effect. That means you moved enough and it's getting the bonus damage, which really happens a lot because you generally travel with it and you can release straight after the green thing. If you pay attention, you kind of get used to it. Then we have cast speed. Cast speed is very important for this skill. We're gonna get to it when we go over the gear, but yeah, I would say it's comfortable when it's 0.1 second cast time per stage. So at 0.1 second, it feels really comfortable. And then +1 on the skill just for damage, +1 to fire. So that's Flameblast. Next we have Facilate. So I'm not gonna go much on that. That used to be my clear skill when with wild shards, but the latest patch bricked wild shards, so we cannot use it anymore. But I still keep it. I tried Fireball, but Fireball was too slow and it didn't make sense. It was either you use Flame Blast or you use Fireball. Having both together didn't really work well. So I still keep Facilate and use it primarily for single target for bosses. And as a buffer between the Flame Blast. As I'm moving, it's such a quick cast time. So I just stack up a bunch of these, then I do Flame Blast. Actually, I do this, drop the Firewall, and then do the Flame Blast. And when there's tons of mobs, like in the breach, you just keep on doing Flame Blast like this. Now on Facilade, 30% more damage, but no crit. 2 additional projectiles, so you get 3 straight away. It goes up to 11 at the moment, so you just need to click 4 times and then you have max. And that does a lot of damage on bosses. Less cast speed, but more damage with spell hits. And then I'm trying Execute instead of Wild Shards. I tried Fork and Ricochet, but they didn't really matter much. But this helps a lot on damage with bosses, where they're like below 35%. You know, usually when the nasty stage comes, this really helps. Next we have Flame Wall. Flame Wall, and we do the Olympic rings here with the Spell Cascade. So it covers more of the map. And then when Facilate or whatever, it burns the enemies, so they receive more damage from the passive tree and so on. Fortress to make it a ring. And Inspiration is for 40% less cost, but really it's not that important right now because now I have a lot of mana regen. You can replace Inspiration with something else. I need to look into that. Next up we have 2 curses. So we use a node for 2 curses on the passive tree, Flammability and Enfeeble. Now the thing with those, I have it on my offhand, so I use the curses only on the secondary weapon because of the passive tree, and we'll get to that when I show you the passive tree. So all the green things, all the curse related stuff are on secondary weapons, so that frees up a lot of passive points to take other things, take damage and energy shield things. So the curses are on the offhand, and if you set them up like this, so it's on the second weapon, and your damage skills, like, you know, Flame Blast is on the first skill, it does it automatically. So you cast 1, it switches the weapon. You see I'm wearing the shield right now. And then same for this curse. So I only use curses on rares and on bosses. You don't really need to use them anywhere else, so therefore it's like that. I used to run the Aura and Blasphemy, but we don't have the Spirit anymore for that, and the effect is significantly reduced, so I prefer to just cast them manually like that. Now on curses, I have on flammability increased effect, create cursed ground, so if the enemy walk into it, they get cursed, and then eruption after 30% reduced delay. And on the enfeeble, another increased area of effect and another eruption, and hex bloom. So if the enemy dies, it gets spread on other enemies, but that's not necessary either. Then solar orb, we use that mainly for exposure. So this applies exposure to our enemies, and we use it to cast Flameblast from distance. Yeah, so if it's a tough pack and you're not face tanking it like I do in the video, you use that like this. You can attack bosses like this from far away, or clear, you know, annoying enemies. Then other than that, Grim Feast is a huge survivability skill from the Witch Tree. We have that, just dead monsters, we pick up the it takes 30 spirit, and we pick up the orbs that give us more energy shield, which can overflow as well, making us really tanky. And then 10 more spirit for the increased mana regen when this is active. Clarity. And then finally, my 100 of spirit is dedicated to elemental conflux, which is 8 seconds between elemental randomizations. As you can see here, I have duration increased on it, so it gives 12 seconds, and +1 to lightning because it's every element. So whenever the fire procs, the damage increase is significant. I mainly wait for the fire one, then I go on to the boss and kill them quickly. So if you look right now, it's 26.8. When the fire one procs, it's 42k, and that does a lot of damage. Overall, I don't think about it. When I play and clear monsters, 1/3 of the time you'll have it on, and that will do a ton of damage. And sometimes it can proc twice in a row and so on. So those are the skills. And finally we have also Blink. I forgot about that. So Blink I have on the offhand because we don't want to reserve 60 spirit just to be able to blink. So it's on the offhand again. And I use the Raise Shield to activate it. I mean, you can do it with the Curse as well, because Curse swaps our weapon, and then you can blink. And when you cast the other skills, you go back to the weapon so you can roll. So you can do through the Curse, but sometimes... Actually, I just bound Raise Shield too, because before I used to run Blasphemy, so I didn't have manual curses. So I just bound Raise Shield on my mouse button, and I activate this, which switches to the shield, and then I can blink.
I need more time.
And I'm using the shield that doesn't have movement speed penalty, because sometimes the Raise Shield gets bugged, and then even after the blink you start walking slowly as if you Raise Shield and you just crawl, you know, which can be annoying. So I use that shield for that. And the blink is used mainly to get out of the tricky situations, like you got surrounded, or you need to kite, or you need to just increase your clear speed, jump from pack to pack. So a blink helps a lot. And those are the skills. So here's a quick clip of a boss kill, just to show you the process. As you can see, I wait for fire buff to begin, and then I typically engage the boss. Now this map has some severe FPS drops, so we do get hit on the head pretty hard here, but we have plenty of HP to survive that. Now, it's not a one-tap kill, as some of the builds out there, but it's still pretty quick, and I'm very comfortable killing all the bosses so far. Now next up we have gear. So for gear we focus on casting speed. So our Flameblast goes to max 10 stages as quick as possible, so we can spam it. We focus on mana regen, maximum mana, and on energy shield. So let's have a look at the wand. +4 fire skills, max damage, extra fire, gain extra fire damage is actually a multiplier, so that's quite important to have. But generally one plus all skills of all fire skills, and cast speed, and as much fire or spell damage as you can. Maximum mana is good as well if you can get that. Now on the source, plus skills, +2 level of all spell skills, again mana, fire damage, and as high energy shield and cast speed as you can. On the helm, it's just your resistances and mana and energy shield. On the chest, same thing. It's important to get at least 40 spirit to run the same buffs as I do, but the rest of it is energy shield and resistances. Then we have boots. Again, movement speed is essential, 30% or 35 if you can get it. Resistances, max mana, and also I have stun threshold, which is quite nice, I believe. I mean, I don't know how stun threshold works. I think nobody does because it's not quite explained here yet. But this piece did help a lot when I got it. I was getting stunned a lot more without this +250. And on the gloves, again, max mana, resistances if you can get it, energy shield, some stats you can get, like dex or strength if you need for your skills, you can get them. Actually, dex on gloves, yeah, I think there is no strength rolls on gloves. Now on your rings you want cast speed, max mana, and mana regen rate, plus resistances. But those are very important. So max mana, cast speed, and mana regen. Resistances are a bonus. So both of them are the same. If you can get the breach ring, that's really good because you can go +50 quality on mana and you buff both of yours, maximum mana and mana regen. Then on the belt and on the amulet, I use legendary ones. So the belt is Midnight Braid, which gives a lot of EHP. So whenever the monsters break the shield, because we use Mind Over Matter on the passive tree here, which all damage is taken from mana before life. So once they start chipping away on your mana, this belt starts to work, and 50% of damage is being put back into mana as a recoup, so over 8 seconds. So that gives quite a lot of survivability. Then the amulet, if you remove the amulet, as you can see, I have 0 shield. That's why it was so important to get a lot of mana, because and energy shield, because we use the passive skill called Eldritch Battery, which converts all energy shield to mana. So all flat energy shield that you've built from your gear, like 179, 487 and so on, gets converted into mana. And what this amulet does, it gives you up to 30% of max mana as extra maximum energy shield. So that 3.9k mana becomes 3.7 energy shield, because all the max energy shield or extra maximum energy shield gets stacked on top. So that becomes really powerful. Potentially in the future, I'll try to go pure mana build without this amulet, because you lose a lot of offensive stats on the amulet. And then just go only mana and have essentially be like that, and then have a ton more mana. But for now, this is a kind of cheapish option to be really strong. I think it costs about 1 diff for the amulet right now. So that's the gear. I have for charms, I use the freezing charm, because getting frozen for like 5 seconds is not fun at all.
So here is some footage of general gameplay, how a basic T15 map feels. As you can see, it's mostly Flameblast and curses going on only on rare mobs, typically. And overall it's very good clear speed, safe to play, high damage, great for farming. Now in this clip I want to show you some safer gameplay. If you're still gearing up and your resistances are not up to scratch, you can use Solar Orb to proc Flameblast from the distance, and you can kill enemies from far away, like you see in the video. Now this is also pre-patch, so you may see wild shards on the EF proccing in a star shape, shotgunning enemies for high damage, so that doesn't work anymore. Just a disclaimer. There's hope that it's gonna come back because it was not listed in the patch notes, but the wild shards do not work like that anymore.
So on your passive tree, on your main, your first weapon set, I take all the fire nodes. So these ones here, increased fire damage, gain 8% extra damage as fire damage. That's a multiplier, so that's quite good. Fire resistance, pen, and so on. We take fire damage here, which gives more area of effect to our flame blast, and increased fire damage also. Burning enemies, so the flame wall burns all the enemies, and that gives a lot of damage also. Little section here, which also gives more AoE for the flame blast. On Ascendancy, we're Stormweaver, so we take Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge gives us cast speed and mana regenerate, so this is essential, this is mandatory. And the other 4 nodes is all damage from hits contributes to shock chance. So basically all damage becomes shock. And then we have this node here, which gives you ability to have 2 shocks at the same time. A shock target is the target that takes 20% extra damage. And with this, if you do 2 sources like Flame Blast and Facilate, it becomes 40%. You'll see 2 debuffs of 20% on the boss, for example. Now, due to that little thing, we take this over here. 30% increased elemental damage if you ignited the enemy with the flame wall, and 30% if you shocked an enemy recently. So that's quite a bit of damage, plus some 10% elemental damages here. So we take this node here. This is extra cast speed. Maximum energy shield is especially important because that's our survivability. So this is all energy shield related and mana related. The rest of it pretty much is. Now, another thing that we've picked up is the Chaos Inoculation, which is maximum life becomes 1, but we become immune to Chaos damage. And Chaos damage is, there is a lot of of it in the end game. All the poison hits, all the purple looking things, green things, it's all chaos damage. So this is quite essential. It makes the game pretty easy once you take this, as long as you have enough buffer to sustain other hits. Now, for the jewels, there is about 5 jewel slots. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, actually 6 jewels. My jewels are not that great, but you want anything energy shield related to them and mana regenerate. So like max energy shield from focus, mana regenerate, chance to shock is not important. Or you can have energy shield as additional stun threshold. I think that helps too. I have a few nodes like this on the tree also. And then energy shield recharge. But also you can go damage nodes like fire damage, elemental damage increase. The rest of the nodes, I'd say, are pretty much energy shield based, survivability based. All the stat nodes are int, except for maybe a couple where I've got some strength that I was needing to equip things. But that's the passive tree. I am level 89 currently. Now, my gear is a little bit scuffed. I need to replace some fire resist with lightning because I recently upgraded the ring. So now I have too much fire, but I'm missing lightning. But you want 75 of all resists. So I'll probably change the chest piece from fire resistance to have lightning instead, and that'll sort it. And then on the helm I can have a better helm, which I don't need. Like instead of chaos I would have some cold resist to get that to 75 also. So overall I want 75 resist here, as much of a energy shield and as much of a mana as possible, 140 spirit, and that's about it. And then you want as much mana regen as you can get. So you take it on all, so when you're moving it's 755 per second, which is not even that high. I've seen people with 1.5, 2k regen. But this is plenty of it for me to keep doing 315 maps, and I hardly ever die. Except, you know, sometimes you do get stun locked. Speaking of, that's why I got Briny Carapace. So Briny Carapace is anti-stun node over here. So 60% increased stun threshold for each time you've been stunned recently. So this helps a lot versus the stun locking. And potentially I will take it manually. I'm level 89, so there's still 11 passive points, because these two nodes are quite good also. So this gives you each time you've been stunned recently, but this is you haven't been stunned recently. So if you're not getting stunned, this is also additional stun threshold. So that's 5 nodes I might take later on as a level. And I forgot to speak about my secondary. So if we swap to the cursing, to the secondary weapon set, this has all the curse nodes. So all the curse duration and effect are on this tree. So from here and this section here, all this gives AoE, area of effect, duration, or some debuffs like hindered, affects slow movements by 30%, and stuff like that.
So that's the end of the video. I hope it's been informative. Thank you for viewing, and if you have any questions, please do ask in the comments. I will also post the link to the build planner in the description, so check that out, and also come join me on Twitch. I've been streaming quite a lot lately. Peace.